today, we're going to do something a little different. We're not just digging into history. We're actually opening up a mentorship session with one of the most brilliant strategic minds from the Three Kingdoms era. So forget the dusty old scrolls. I want you to think of this as a masterclass in career strategy, taught by the legendary general Zhang He. All right, let's open his playbook and see what we can learn.
And let's just start right here. Have you ever had that job? You know, the one where your boss just won't listen to good advice, where there's always that one colleague ready to throw you under the bus, and you just know, deep down, that you are capable of so much more. That feeling of being completely stuck? Well, that's exactly where our mentor's story really kicks off.
So let's meet the man himself. Here's a look at his resume, if you will. Zhang He was one of the 5 great generals of Cao Wei, which is kind of like being named to the executive all-star team of his day. But the skill we're really going to zoom in on, his core competency, was something called shabian. The best way to think about it is the art of strategic adaptability. It's the ability to read a situation, whether it's a battlefield or a boardroom, and instantly see the pivot that can turn a disaster into a victory. It was, without a doubt, his superpower.
Okay, let's get into part 1. Because every truly great career has one of these moments, right? A single decision that changes everything. For Zhang He, that moment was a stark choice between staying loyal to a failing organization or betting on himself.
So, picture this. It's the year 200 AD, during the massive Battle of Guandu. Zhang He is working for this really powerful but, frankly, indecisive leader named Yuan Shao. When a key supply depot gets attacked, Zhang He gives some solid advice. Hey, we should reinforce the main camp. Simple, smart, but his boss ignores him. Of course, the battle is lost, and immediately a rival starts poisoning the well, telling the boss it was all Zhang He's fault. In the blink of an eye, his career, and probably his life, is hanging by a thread.
So really put yourself in his shoes for a second. You're a top performer, you see the fatal flaw in the plan, you voice it, and you get shut down. Then, when the whole thing inevitably blows up, the political knives come out and you're the #1 target. So what do? Do you stay loyal to that broken system and just hope things get better? Or do you make a radical change and bet on your own talent?
This is where you see his genius. He didn't get angry, he didn't despair, he just looked at the situation with absolute clarity. As he basically said, if your leadership can't listen to reason, failure is a certainty. And you know, staying on a sinking ship out of some misguided sense of loyalty, that's just a dead end. So he made one of the toughest calls you can make. He quit. He burned his bridges and walked over to the enemy camp, which was run by the brilliant and opportunistic Cao Cao. It was a huge, huge gamble, but it was a calculated one.
Okay, so that brings us to part 2. Because look, making a bold career move is one thing, but proving it was the right call, that's a whole other ballgame. This next phase is all about how Zhang He turned that massive risk into a legendary career.
And boy, he did not waste a single second. Just look at this timeline. His first decade with his new company was basically a highlight reel. He's conquering cities, winning key battles. He was consistently delivering results. He wasn't just another soldier. He was the guy you brought in to solve the impossible problems. And he flourished under a leader who actually recognized and rewarded that kind of talent. Every single one of these victories was just more proof that his big, risky decision was the right one.
And here's the lesson for all of us, right? Zhang He's talent didn't just magically appear when he switched sides. It was there all along. The only thing that changed was the environment. He put himself in a culture that actually valued his expertise, that gave him the room to operate and that let him grow. It's a timeless lesson. You can be the smartest person in the room, but if the room itself is toxic, you're never going to reach your full potential. You've got to find your Cao Cao.
Which brings us to part 3, his masterpiece. You know how every great professional has that one project, that one achievement that becomes their calling card? For Zhang He, it was the Battle of Jieting. This was Cao Wei, his philosophy of strategic adaptability put into brilliant, brutal action.
So here's the strategic puzzle he's facing. The enemy army has made a classic mistake. They've camped out on top of a mountain, thinking the high ground makes them unbeatable. The problem? They're completely cut off from their water source. Now, a lesser general might have just thrown their troops at the mountain in a costly frontal assault, but Zhang He didn't see a fortress. He saw fatal weakness. He saw an opportunity.
His strategy was just pure elegance. It was a 3-step masterclass. First, he identified their critical weakness. It wasn't the enemy soldiers, it was their thirst, so he cut them off from the water. Second, he cut off everything else. He completely surrounded the mountain, making sure no supplies, no reinforcements, nothing could get in. And third, only after they were weakened did he finally attack. He wasn't fighting an army at that point. He was fighting a demoralized, desperate, and thirsty mob.
It was a genius move, low cost, high impact.
And the result of that kind of thinking? His reputation became legendary. This quote tells you everything you need to know. His biggest rival, the master strategist Zhuge Liang, knew that Zhang He was the one guy who could completely dismantle his plans. The entire enemy kingdom feared him. That's the kind of respect you earn when you don't just win, but you master your craft.
And now, we come to the end of his story in part 4, but I don't want you to think of this as a failure. It's the final and maybe the most powerful lesson from our mentor. Even genius has its limits.
The year is 231. The enemy is in full retreat. Zhang He's commander gives a direct order. Pursue them. Finish the job. On the surface, it looks like a golden opportunity, right? The kind of high-reward move that could end the campaign. But something just doesn't feel right.
And this slide lays out the final lesson perfectly. Look at the contrast. His victory at Jieting was all about patience, carefully reading the terrain, and taking a calculated risk. But at Wuhuan, all those principles went out the window. It was pure haste, a blind pursuit into a narrow gorge, terrain he hadn't scouted. He walked right into a perfectly laid ambush. The very adaptability that made him a legend was short-circuited by the pressure to act fast.
He was killed in that ambush. And this quote from his commander, the same guy who gave the order, it's just heartbreaking. It shows you how incredibly valuable Zhang He was. His death wasn't just the loss of one man. It was a strategic blow to the entire nation. It's such a tragic reminder that for even the most brilliant among us, a single reckless decision can undo a lifetime of incredible work.
So, after all that, what can we take away from this mentorship session? What's in the Zhang He playbook for us? First, have the courage to know when it's time to pivot. Second, once you're in the right place, commit to mastering your craft. Third, remember the best strategy isn't always a head-on fight. Look for the leverage. Fourth, cultivate that Cao Wei in yourself, that strategic adaptability. And finally, maybe the most important lesson of all, you have to understand the razor-thin line between a calculated risk and a reckless gamble.
So we'll end on this question. Zhang He's entire legacy, everything he built, came from his incredible ability to adapt. So the question I have for you is this. When you look at your own career, your own projects, where do you need to adapt to win? What is that one skillful change you could make right now that would turn the battle in your favor?